Hi, we're starting a new vlog for a Batman movie, The Dark Knight Rises. Iron Forge Films, we're putting together a special project just for you. I think Eric has something to add to that part.
Oh snap! Now I'm on the spot. Am I doing the thing now? We're doing
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Hope you all like some Batmans. Woo!
So it's a Dark Knight trilogy sequel with a lot of ties to the comic world, because since it's a fan film, of course, we want to incorporate every single thing we can to give everyone what they want to see, including about 30 characters, of course, because every time you make a fan film, someone's got some suggestions of who they need to see, like, hey, don't forget this guy, or Red Hood, you better have Red Hood in there, or, they get pissed. They get mad about these things. So
they do get irritated.
We decided to shoehorn them all in there in a natural way. We have Greg. We have big news from him, Sentinel of Seattle. A lot of guys know him. A lot of fans out there. I know I'm a huge fan. He did this movie, Wolverine. It's pretty good. It's the albino. The other albino. Yeah, Eric Manix Photography, good friend, producer. We're trying to make this thing the best we can with the best people that we know and the most passionate people that we could find, because we're fans, so of course we want something that we all want. We want the same thing, so we'll make something great, and we don't have room for negative energy. So all positive people on the cast. Got a huge cast and crew. Got Aaron Gregson down there on the bottom. Real Nathan Summers. It's the director for the movie.
Excited. I'm very excited for this project. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay.
Everybody we got going with us, that's the key to this whole thing. We got a great group of people. I mean, and honestly, a great group of people. Wolverine Chronicles had a great group around us, but it seems like we just collected even a bigger group of people who are really into it and really want to make something special.
And we've actually even tried to learn from some of the mistakes that we might have made during Chronicles, like sacrificing performance for someone who has a costume, stuff like that. So this time around, we wanted to seriously consider who could help to bring these roles alive and not just stand there and deliver a line. We want you to reach in and give the best performance you can. And we've actually got big news as far as the Batman himself is concerned, the casting. We had at one point planned for a guy who expressed interest at one point, and unfortunately he's going to be unavailable. And this is such a big role. We don't want to just give it to some guy who just has a costume. We want to give it to someone who's been there since the beginning, who is passionate and wants to act and wants to bring this character to life. And so tonight we want to announce that Percy is our new Batman.
Right? Sorry.
He's so excited. He's literally broken
He fell down.
That couldn't have been better time.
That was actually beautiful.
I don't know what happened.
This is why we pre-record things, so we could just edit. Greg, or
real quick,
on Greg taking the role.
Okay?
What's that?
How's the lighting in here? Am I okay?
It's decent, but Jesus.
It's a little dark, but it's not.
But I guess that's the Batman.
It's appropriate.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Tonight.
They have these selfie things that has like a light on it.
That better?
Greg, at Walmart.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, that's better.
Circle light, ring light. Yeah, much better.
Yeah.
Tell us about you getting the role of Batman and how you feel about it.
Well, originally I was cast as Bane, and I was really excited about that, and really excited to see what I could do with the voice, with the demeanor, all those fun aspects. And then when it was brought up the opportunity to potentially take on Batman, a daunting opportunity, but something that I'm really accustomed to finding the biggest possible challenge and really taking on as much as I can. And I'm really excited about doing everything I can to really pull from Christian Bale's Batman and then also kind of make it my own. So I'm pumped. I'm excited. I've been a big fan of Batman forever. Walking around Batman costumes for my whole life. So
Well, you know, that's honestly why we thought of you for the role too, because I mean, you outwork anybody. So that's, you know, just having that kind of passion, I think was, at least for me, was a big part of it all.
You know what the main motivator for me, Greg, and I know I told you this, but as you know, Eric, as you know, some people just are not very good at communication. I've had this problem myself, but when you dedicate yourself to someone or something, then you kind of are opening a door to make yourself available. So if you're not interested, don't say you're interested. If you're interested, then put everything into it. And once you decide to put everything into it, then that speaks volumes to everything. Because I'm sure you've known people where, hey, let's do this. And then a week goes by, can't even answer a message. You don't even know if you're doing it anymore. And you're like, okay, well, I got these other people to complement what you're doing as an ensemble. And then the day comes and maybe they don't even make it.
Yeah, you know, honestly, that kind of stuff started for me doing my photography. You know, when I was new, there was photo shoots where I'd have one person show up, you know, and like I'd go I live in Olympia, I'd drive all the way to Seattle, and I would like book these things months in advance. I'd be constantly in communication with people, and then I'd have like one person show up, and as long as one person showed up, I could do my thing, you know, so we'd make it work. And then inevitably what would always happen is you'd post the photos later, and then all the other models that were supposed to show up were like, oh man, that looks so dope. Like, I wish I was there. Like, yeah, you could have been.
Oh, you're invited.
You got invited. You're the one that flaked out, remember? And so for me personally, you know, I try to be kind and inviting and opening to people, and I always want to keep the door open to, you know, working with new people. That's always something that's important to me. At the same time, I can't stand flakes. That's just like a personal thing with me. And so, you know, if I see that's a pattern for people, you know, I stop inviting them to things. And I will say, relating it back to Wolverine Chronicles and to this project, I actually didn't realize that Greg was Sentinel of Seattle when I met him on the set, because and I'm a huge Sentinel of Seattle fan, but yeah, because everyone's just like, oh, this dude Greg, and he started coming into the Discord chats, and I was like, you know, really impressed with, because we do these like nightly reads of the script, and like not everyone could make it, and so like Anthony would read lines, and we would all like, it was actually really fun. Like Julian would we'd all do like different voices, and like we keep it fun and just joke around and whatever. But that way we all learned our lines, and we would just work. But like Greg was always there, you know. And then I remember like on the set, we had to drive all the way to Flagler, and like him and Megan, who did Mystique, they had to stay up all night in their makeup. Because we had Starla Eisby, amazing pro makeup artist, come up, do their makeup the night before. So that's, I mean, talk dedication. That's one thing. You had these kids that had to stay up all night, like not move, and then act the whole next day, just like tired out of your mind. So like right there, that's just impressive as it is, right? Like that's a huge deal. And then you guys were up all night, like setting up. We had to hike like a mile into the woods. Oh, yeah. So like it was this whole thing. That was a hard day. It was an amazingly fun day. I loved it so much. But like that was like, but that it just like I was running around between sets, just with my camera, just taking behind the scenes and whatever, and just goofing around. And like the whole time, Greg was reading the script and just going over it the whole time. And I remember then just taking that mental note, like that was impressive. Like that's hard work right there, you know. And,
I gotta tell you guys,
I noticed that.
I was so nervous on that one because I didn't know what level anybody was coming in on. So was it 2 weeks about 2 weeks.
It was pretty late to the game.
Yeah. You got it 2 weeks before you got there. I remember that.
Yeah, I didn't know what level anybody was coming in at, and so when you had hit me up about it, I'm like, oh, it's probably like a henchman or something like that.
You have henchmen.
Yeah, and then they're sending you videos of me messing with the voice and the way he stands and just all that stuff. I was so nervous. I'm like, okay, I don't want to come in and everybody's like, who is this guy? So I was like, just grinding on it. I actually recorded myself reading my own lines and listened to them every morning while I was working out in the gym.
Yeah.
You got to do it, man.
Oh, it was,
you had
so
some people had the script for 2 months and didn't know their lines, and you had your script for 2 weeks, and you outperformed those people, which is kind of embarrassing.
That was, yeah.
I mean, and that's why this time around we don't want to just force squares into circles. We want to have people that are passionate and want to do it. Like Greg became the answer for Batman just because of his enthusiasm, his commitment, his willing to work, his willing to be his best. That's all it took. It didn't take because he looks like Christian Bale, because I don't see it, but it doesn't need to be, because well, honestly, we know you and what's inside.
Yeah, you just got it too, bro. And that's the way the group is coming together. Like all the people involved in it seem like they really want to do it, and you know, everything's been falling in place. And those kind of situations are kind of destiny. You know, when the things fall together like that, it's fate telling you that you got to keep doing it. You know,
I'm gonna keep plugging away on that voice. Like I told you guys, I was Eric. You don't know this, but I've been working on the voice, and it started going from Christian Bale more into Lego Batman.
I can, you know, I mean, I can, you know, Lego Batman is legit. Lego Batman is really, really good. So,
no, I don't want to do that.
You know, I'm thinking about Lex, and really, my Lex is informed by, you know, Smallville and Michael Rosenbaum, and it's clearly not going to be like that version, but it's going to be closer to that version than it is going to be like, you know, like a Jesse Eisenberg or something like that. And I'm definitely going to bring my own thing to that. Yeah, you know, no disrespect if that's your thing, but that wasn't my thing. I personally, you know, think Rosenbaum was like, you know, definitely my favorite version, you know, of Lex. He was like a more sympathetic, you know, still scary, still a monster, but like.
I hope you get that turn where you're talking to somebody, you turn a face away from them, and then you say your line.
Well, that's happening. Believe that. Believe that. That's my best angle anyway.
You're set up to be, I don't want to give any spoilers, but you're set up in this one. Set up for greatness.
Heck yeah.
Set up for a sequel.
I'm definitely I'm really excited. I'm really excited to be a part of it again. Absolutely. When I feel like it was a similar thing with, you know, doing Professor X and Chronicles, it's like you have a clear example of what to do with, you know, Patrick Stewart, and like, you know, that's the roadmap. At the same time, you kind of have to do your own thing with it as well. You know what I mean? Both just as an actor and as like a comic book fan, you know, you've got to like bring something to it. So you can't go so far that you disrespect, you know, what came. But also, like, if you're doing like an imitation of the person, that also feels hollow in a way. And so, like, that's kind of one of the things I get really excited about with these projects, is like somewhere in there's a little bit of wiggle room. And that's where I find little mannerisms and things that I can get excited about, and you know, not soil what came before, but if I'm doing it right, you know, I can like own it in a way, but also expand on it and flush it out.
There's a little wiggle room there. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, as part of being an actor too, I think that's a big part of it. Like, if you really try to imitate somebody else in a certain role, and you're not being your version of that character, and you know, that's a respectable thing to me. Instead of trying to be someone else, be yourself, but emulate that character. You know what I'm saying? As how you would adapt in your own soul. You know, I think that brings out the best performances.
You know, we had that day on Chronicles, and we were driving around that like 5 mile loop, and we were just doing that like road trip scene, and I'm supposed to like, you know, take my pills, and I just end up hiding them in my pocket. And it was a great script, and the way it was written, I loved it, but I felt like I needed to play it angrier than that, you know? And and I remember like being a little nervous, like, I don't know, I feel like this is like pushing it a little bit, but I also feel like Professor X, he's kind of out of it. He's kind of drugged at this point, but he's a very proud man, you know, and he's going to have lucid moments. And so I kind of played it as angry, and I kind of glared. And I remember during the playback, you guys were like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah." I was like, "Okay, okay." So I was like, "Thank you." I took a risk, and it worked on that one, and yeah. So that just artistically, it was very rewarding. Because the script was great, the direction was great. You don't want to like mess with that, but you also have to feel that you own part of it too, and like it felt like a very great, very cohesive, relationship, and that was one of the highlights for me.
That was something I really enjoyed, and one of the reasons why I'm excited to come back and work with you guys again was you had a clear vision of what you wanted Sinister to be like, but you helped me to kind of make it my own, and also let me play with it a little bit on the day of. I've actually gotten to do a couple more projects since then, and that's not always the case, it turns out. I really, really appreciated the ability to say, pick your brain as far as what you're envisioning. Like Anthony, we were talking about the voice for Sinister was just going to be over the top, just huge. But I was able to kind of dial it back and make it a little more sinister, and and still have those large moments, but still kind of come in with a little bit darker. So
we've been wanting to leave just a little bit of room for anyone who's acting to be able to take that character and make it more their own, because it's like you said, there's a baseline. There's a baseline. There's certain characteristics, but beyond that, this is a reimagining as well. So we want you to be able to do what you have to do to make that character your own. And sometimes you can't tell someone how to do that. They have to look at themselves and think, oh, you know what? I think he would be like this, because you're the character at this point. So if it feels natural to you, then you have to do what feels the best.
Oh yeah, I was walking around the gym all proper and stuff, trying to do the Sinister.
And then making a few.
And then I went to the gym as Sinister the next day.
That's ridiculous. Now you're just going crazy.
That's crazy.
Every time I do Drax,
they think all kinds of crazy stuff.
Oh, yeah. Every time I do Drax, I'm in the gym as Drax the next day. I'll probably go to the gym. Raccoon eyes after Batman.
They got these things called makeup towels. Take it right off. Take it right off.
That's for after the
anything
gym.
You look like you're crying. You're like at a
that's not
some Rocky Horror Picture show showing and you're crying or something. We're making small changes to some of the outfits as well to show that this is a different place and time, because just like they do in the movies, because of action figures, you have to have some kind of new tweaks here and there to kind of keep it a little bit interesting.
Oh yeah, and I think Batman's one of those characters, where he's always woodshedding things and trying out new things. So, it's like he's probably gone through 50 versions of the bat suit. And so I think that's really cool. That's a thing that I always loved seeing in the comics. And Iron Man, probably takes it even more than that as far as like consistently doing these major upgrades. But I don't know. It's kind of cool when you'll read like a Batman comic and it's like, even if it's just for a story arc or two, it's like, I have this like mystic cape that I got from Ra's al Ghul, and it's like, and I might just have it for this one story, but it's like, oh, that's kind of fun though. Or like, I just have these goggles, and like, you might not see me again for a while, but I'm gonna go dive underwater, and I'll just have these goggles, and then I don't know. I love that Batman has like a little kind of like tool for everything. But even like just like the way the chest insignia is and all that, like there's like eras of Batman that you can like just from like the artist rendering and like, oh, is it a yellow oval or is it all black on black? Like you can tell like what era of Batman that is, and like I just love that personally, just like that distinct signature style. And the movies have the same thing, absolutely.
Yeah, same with the comics, because some of those comics, like especially those 80s all the way to some of the 90s, man, that's like something that will never be done again. Norm Brayfogle, remember that guy?
Oh, the Brayfogle and Alan Grant run is probably my personal favorite, ever in the comics. I love their stuff so much. That was like when I was a kid and I discovered it. He just passed a few years ago, and that was a huge loss to the comics community. I mean, you talk about things that are influential in my life, like period, that outside of even just comics, just life in general, and like that run was like hugely influential. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, even the Jim Aparo stuff. Like, remember being a kid and not liking how Bruce looked, but man, that Batman, and over time, I adjusted. I was because McFarlane was coming out and everything was all extra detailed, so sometimes you would be a little harder on other things. But man, that Batman, but you appreciate things a little bit more when you're older. But
It's like Batman.
yeah. Aaron, you want to add anything about the movie before we move on?
Not really, other than the script is great. I mean, you did a really good job writing it. I think it's going to be an amazing thing. All the people, all the characters are really woven together well. I think the story is solid, so I'm really excited to make it and put it together and see how everybody comes together to make it. It's always
one of the things about having 30 characters is you don't want to make any of the characters a prop. You want every character to have a reason to be there, and to construct a story like that, it's about character, like we always say, it's character development or pushing the story forward. If you're not doing either of those things, then you're wasting everyone's time. So we didn't want Poison Ivy to have no purpose but to say, hey, Poison Ivy's in it.
Yeah.
Got a lot of people in this thing. Let me just run it down for the people at home that might not know who we got. We got Batman, Catwoman, Red Hood, Robin, Gordon, Bullock is even in it, Joker, Roz, Scarecrow, Bane, Penguin, Hugo Strange, Harley Quinn, Lex Luthor, Black Mask, Riddler, Ivy, Talia, Alfred, Mercy is even in it, Scarface and the Ventriloquist, and a bunch of thugs, and might even be missing someone off my list. This is an older list, but man, it's a lot of people here.
The Condiment King isn't on there.
No, hell no. But who almost made it was I was trying to get Killer Moth in there somehow, but it was just not going to happen because we had so many people already, and it was just like, so I did Scarface instead, because Killer Moth, someone would have to make that freaking ugly thing. Let's face it. And it would be more like classic, would be striped pants, oh yeah. Let's talk about I feel like sometimes Eric used to work at a comic store, the biggest comic store probably in Washington, maybe even one of the biggest ones on the whole West Coast.
It was biggest on the West Coast. I think it was in the top 10 in the entire country. Yeah, it was huge. Yeah, very, very large, like a literal warehouse of comic books. Yeah, I worked there for 8 years. That was a lot of fun. That was a literal kid in a candy store situation. Very dangerous for my wallet for those. Yeah, that almost decade. Yeah.
Forget where we're even going with that question.
I don't know.
Talking about the comic book market, maybe, and where the comics market is at.
I think we're talking about, I think we're going to get into your first experience. I know that's a topic. First experience with Batman. When you first discovered Batman, let's just start with it. You want to start us off, Eric?
Yeah. So I got into comics, reading comics in 1985, and I started with Conan back when it was Marvel Comics doing it, and I should not have been reading Conan at 5 years old, but my parents weren't really paying too much attention to what I read back then, and so yeah, that's what got me started with comics. I know that I definitely fell in love with Batman fully during the '92 animated series. I know that I was aware of who Batman was by the time the cartoon came out, but I was 12 at that point, and yeah, I just felt like the perfect, age to like really get into it. And even now, I've gone back and watched Batman the animated series, several times, and it's like one of those rare things from your childhood that actually holds up and is actually really, really quality. And like, you had Bruce Timm and Paul Dini as an amazing creative team. And then you had Darwin Cook in the later years, one of my all-time favorite comic book artists, all working on this story along with just very talented writers and animators and everyone involved. And just everything they did with it, like they'd use, you know, black paper for the backgrounds and everything.
Yeah.
So the show was just literally very physically dark all the time. And like, it had this cool kind of like Art Deco thing going on, but like, they never said what year it was.
No.
And like, but it
Timeless.
clearly wasn't the 40s or 50s, because you'd see technology that, you know, but so I just loved the aesthetic of the show too, because it was in this cool classic contemporary vibe, and like all the character designs and outfits and everything were like tweaked from what you had seen in any movie or comic book before, especially in the case of like a Catwoman or something, and they really just did their own thing with it. And so like to this day I still just adore Batman the Animated Series, and like Kevin Conroy's voice is like Batman's voice eternally for me, more than, I mean, you know, I love many different versions of Batman, and I kind of love all the movies, even the cheesy ones, for what they are, but Batman the Animated Series is like such a high watermark for me personally, and I know that's where I fell headfirst in love with, you know, just that entire universe of characters. I grew up more of a Robin, you know, fan, just because it was the classic. He was like the kid, right? And so, yeah, I was a huge Tim Drake guy, definitely. But yeah, that's what did it. That's what started it.
How'd you feel about seeing Tim Drake in her movie?
You know, I'm very excited. I'm very excited, especially, you know, with who we have, and I'll just tease it for now. Some really good talent. One of my favorite things about Batman is just kind of the family aspect and the generational aspect. There's people out there that say, like, you know, Bruce Wayne died when his parents died, and I reject that. You know, like, people act like Batman's all about like vengeance, and like it's like Bruce Wayne's just the mask, and it's like, no, that's not accurate. Batman is definitely about love. He's definitely about family. I mean, you don't raise, you know, Dick Grayson and Tim Drake and all these kids up and do what you did if you're like a dead inside. You don't do that, you know. Like the fact that he's been such a strong father figure, and now with, you know, his biological son Damian and everything, and just the entire, you know, Bat family with Huntress and everyone involved, and how he's been a role model to all these people. Like, like I think there's a lot of love in the Batman universe, and I think people get it twisted a lot. But yeah, Tim Drake is rad. One of my favorite characters for sure. Also a huge Dick Grayson fan too. I kind of love all the Robins, what they are, but Tim Drake was like new to being Robin when I jumped in, and so that's kind of like my sentimental fave forever. So yeah, definitely super stoked, and I love that we have, you know, multiple generations in this movie, because to me, like, one of my favorite things about DC Comics in general is like they allowed some of their characters to age up. Marvel, I love Marvel to death, but Peter Parker is always going to be Spider-Man forever, you know, which is kind of cool in a way, but it's also like, I don't know, you know. I like seeing teen heroes, and like this is actually the third version of Sandman or whatever. I think that's also really cool and really valid, and also a really fun way to tell stories.
I think one of the big things we wanted to do with this movie was to show those aspects of Batman that you don't really ever get a chance to see, except for glimpses in maybe the animated show or the comic book. Otherwise, you don't see it. And you have to have all those other characters of his, the Nightwings, Robins, everybody, to show those pieces of him that he is unwilling to show himself. So together you get the full picture, and you can see it's not just those two, but it's also Alfred. So you can see all the generations of it. And we wanted to also incorporate his relationship with Catwoman. And we have a couple twists in the plot to bring it back to status quo as well. So we don't want to give away too much, but, you know, some of the greatest heroes are tragic heroes, and Batman's the type who, no matter what, it wouldn't kill him completely. It might seem like he's dead, but he cares.
Yeah, absolutely.
Aaron, what about your first experience with Batman?
You know, honestly, Batman started me with Keaton, 1989 Keaton. My mom and dad, I think my dad was there, but I know for sure my mom was there. I believe we went to the movies and watched it in the movie theater. I remember seeing Jack Nicholson as the Joker and Keaton as the Batman, pulling up in that big Batman car that he has, you know, the Bat car. I mean, let's be honest. To me, that was life-changing. And, you know, I always seen Batman as a family oriented person already myself too, because to me, he was like the man's man. He lost his family. And so he was always in kind of a search for family or connection with others. But at the same time, the tragedy about him is that he can't really be that close to others because he's always in the fire. And so I think you can really play with the character a lot when you got those kind of that kind of origin. And so he always stuck with me. I mean, I really stuck through Batman until what Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze, and then I stopped watching until the Dark Knight trilogy you know, came out. Once that the Batman Begins, and it was a long time, to be honest with you. But Schwarzenegger killed it for me. And
well, he stopped making movies for a while after that too.
Man, I'll be honest, he killed it for me. And to be honest, I was getting older and into other things, so it wasn't just about Schwarzenegger, but it was also as it just became cheesier as I got older because I was so into other things like girls and music and all the other stuff. So I kind of lost it for a little bit there, and I was brought really back to Batman by the Dark Knight. Batman Begins was the first one that brought. I probably watched that movie more than any other Batman movie ever in my life. Batman Begins. I've seen it so many times. You know, really, that Christian Bale is probably my favorite Batman. That dude, he brought a particular brutalness to Batman, and to me, that was like I've always been big into martial arts too. So to see his training with Ra's al Ghul, that was a big deal for me, I guess. And so yeah.
That was a big deal when that came out, you know, Christian Bale. Because, you know, Eric, you remember when Keaton came out, that was a serious turn at that moment in time. But this kind of just kicked it all in, faceted into the real world where there is no question that this could be a guy who would do these things. I mean,
yeah. So you had Tim Burton, who, you know, I tend to like his stuff. He has like kind of a dark gothic vibe to everything he does, and so it was a really good fit for Batman. And yeah, Batman and Batman Returns, I still, you know, look on fondly, and I think they're really cool for what they are. And they're kind of like, you know, corny and cheesy in places, but like they're also like really, really cool and really badass. And like the character designs and just the aesthetic of those films is really, really good. And those definitely helped to, you know, inform, you know, the animated series a little later on, because it was so
Big
popular
time.
and so fresh in everyone's mind. And so I do love them. And then Joel Schumacher came in, and those movies were fun for what they were, but it was like, you know, if you came in for the Tim Burton like broody moodiness, and then you had this like Technicolor Dayglow splendor, it was just a different vibe. And I don't hate those movies by any means, but they're like super goofy, you know, and like
that's it.
They are really goofy. And I was the same thing, Aaron, because, you know, we're like the same age. So like I was, you know, getting into high school at that point, and, you know, so, you know, I broke off for a little while, and I'd read the comics here and there. But yeah, I think it was a similar path where it was like, you know, Nolan brought it back, because the Nolan stuff, it didn't feel like the DC universe. It felt like real life, you know, and like it was like, you know, this really could happen. It felt like this could be like Chicago or something. And like, and there's something about that I, you know, really enjoyed and thought was really cool. Like the Batmobile that they had and everything, even though it's way different than the comics and everything. I like that it was so different because it did its own thing, and like all the cool armor and exoskeletons and everything that he did. Just, it was so badass. Yeah. But yeah, Nolan films are super dope. I love them.
Greg?
Yeah.
What's your first experience with Batman?
I had read a couple comic book or Batman comic books, but I've never seen. Batman 1989 Batman was a game changer for me. I was about 5 years old when that came out. It was just crazy to see Batman on big screen, and then when they went from 89 Batman to Batman Returns, seeing the change of like small changes in the suit, the Batmobile when it split three pieces, all that was just like, whoa, okay, so it doesn't have to just be the same suit. Just because it's the same character, you can change the suit and upgrade, and that was a big deal to me. And then Nightfall was a big one for me.
Yeah, that was huge. That came out right after that movie.
Yeah, Nightfall was what,
Yeah.
like 93 or something like
It
that.
was 93. Yeah.
Yeah, that was
That
huge.
fucked me up. That fucked me up when it came out.
Yeah,
Big
yeah.
time. I was like
Like,
crying.
oh yeah, yeah. And then you had Jean Paul Valley, where it's all just even further, more violent and just.
Well, we have an aspect of that upgrade. Remember when he had those gauntlets?
Yeah,
Because that's what it reminds me of when you showed me those gauntlets.
Oh.
We're looking at the upgrades for the suit to bring it to a different time era, and every time I think about that, that's what it reminds me of.
Nice. But yeah, that was my first, or not my first, but that was my most pivotal Batman moments for me. And then, like you guys said, when Christian Bale took over, that was his work ethic for the role, for one, because he had just
Yeah,
done.
he did a Machinist.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was so small in that. It's crazy.
Oh my goodness.
It's like 100 pounds.
yeah. And I'm really excited to kind of take on that mentality when it comes to really trying to make sure I put everything I have into this. And so once I get test fitted, then I can kind of feel for what else I can keep building on. Because I was building for Bane. I had a game plan in place to put on as much as I can, but I don't
30 pounds of beef.
Right. So I'm gonna hold off on getting too crazy with things until I get that. But I'm gonna start investigating some. You had mentioned there. I don't want to look like a fool on camera and not know what I'm doing. So I'm gonna investigate stuff. And so.
No, I'm like you guys. When the '89 movie came out, like I had comics here and there as a kid, like Batman comic, Superman comic, whatever, stuff like that. But I wasn't really a huge comic fan. I'm a kid. I'm playing with toys. So when that movie came out, like you said, Greg, that was a life changer. Like my dad died around the time that movie came out. And for me, like Batman just meant everything to me because I actually wanted to be him. And that road actually led to how much I love Deadpool, because trying to become Batman, all right, in theory, yeah, sounds good, but it's impossible. That's not going to happen. You're not going to jump from a rooftop on a daily basis and do a somersault, land on your feet. That's not happening. But Batman, he's changed my whole life. He's the reason why I became a comic fan. If it wasn't for that movie in the animated series, just like you guys, I wouldn't give a shit about comic books or any of that cosplay, dressing up as Deadpool. I probably wouldn't have the door open for these other characters that I like. It all started right there. Even when I was trying to be like Batman, I would even try to be polite and, talk to people. And I remember talking to some old ladies at a bus stop, and they said something really stupid because I'm like this little kid, and I'm saying what I say. It was something like, I don't know, something really stupid, like, one of those really poshy, like British, like, oh, good day, ladies, blah, 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 something like that. But for older people, where it's just like, I'm just trying to be polite. And then I remember just like laying in bed and not want to do anything. And then thinking, what would Batman do? And then I would jump out of the covers and I start my day sometimes. And even right now, when, sometimes driving with weirdos, sometimes you become questionable. And I always had it embedded into my brain that behind the wheel, I'm like Batman. I had a line for it. It was like, behind the wheel of an automobile. I forgot how it went, but there's some that I always kept with me. Anytime I have an issue driving, I just remember that, and then it helps.
Yeah,
helps a lot.
That the animated series did such a great job.
Well.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
They did such a great job of making us care about the villains. Like,
Before
Mr. Freeze, I mean,
he cared. Yeah.
You watch that episode and it's like, oh, okay, so now I understand him a lot more. They did such a great job with almost every character. I mean, they did Man-Bat, who doesn't even. I mean, you cared about that character, and it's just They did a good.
Clayface in particular, I loved Clayface. Clayface, they did so many good things with. But yeah, all the villains, like, well, like even in the comics, they had pretty shallow backstories, a lot of them. And like with Mr. Freeze, it was Mike Mignola coming in and rewriting it, and so they had like some just amazing talent working on it. And that was definitely, I don't know, I just
the music.
I like sympathetic villains, and and.
I mean, Harley Quinn came out of that. I mean, look at the phenomenon of that today.
Oh yeah, the single greatest, the single greatest contribution is absolutely like the introduction of the Harley Quinn, as far as like literal pop culture icon at this point. Yeah.
One, I mean, if you think about it, I always loved the psychology behind the Joker and Harley Quinn dynamic too. I mean, there's the one thing that I can say about Batman animated series, because that was one I watched a lot of when I was a kid. And to be honest with you, there was so much deeper psychology underneath the stories inside of Batman animated series. Like, you can watch it as an adult. I think that's why it still plays real to us, because as adults, we can watch it. We can see the deeper metaphors that we weren't able to see when we were children. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, I went back, in particular, I'm a huge Harley Quinn fan. That's my favorite character in Batman. So
he loves her.
To be honest with you, I can really see the dynamic between Joker and her, and how much Joker really doesn't give a crap. But Harley Quinn is just this maniacally in love with Joker, and I always that dynamic always played well with me, and I think that's what made me fall for her, because at the same time I fell in love with this kid, this girl who I thought was the greatest thing on the planet as a child, and then here you go, Joker's just kicking her around like she's nothing. I mean, at one point she's in a cake singing for this dude in a 90, and this is something when I'm a kid, man, I'm seeing her singing in a 90 and jumping out of a cake for Joker, and he's like kicking her out the freaking door. Like, to me, that was like something that, like, just a really important thing, as a child. It really affected me. So the animated series was probably one of my favorites.
A good chunk of Batman's villains, like, there's a psychological aspect to them, there's a mental health aspect to all those characters and their motivations. And I mean, Batman probably has the best rogues gallery in all of comics. And he's got some pretty silly out there ones, but I mean, as far as like Joker, Riddler, Killer Croc, there's you can just keep going with like at least 10 or 15 like really like iconic villains that keep coming back, and like they're intense and like scary, and sometimes also tragic and kind of lovable sometimes even. And there's just, because you're only as good as your villains, and Batman definitely has like definitely the coolest villains, I think.
I gotta say.
The animated series, like you said, did such a good job of making every single character that they brought in villain-wise into someone you could relate to and feel for and be sympathetic for, and sometimes lose the fact that they are just a bad guy. Like the Killer Croc episode always kind of stands out too, when he meets that girl and she wants to the circus one, and she wants to kind of help him, and she's like the first person he comes across that hasn't judged him for what he looks like. And there's moments to all of these people. I think even Jervis Tetch has moments, but as far as Rose Gallery, man, there's always this debate. Spider-Man and Batman, those are everyone's favorite villains that they like to compare. But the thing is like, Bat villains are just so deep and so intricate. And like you said, you have so much love for these characters that you put them next to a series of animal-themed villains, and it just doesn't seem fair, because these people are people. Yeah.
Well, there's especially something if you look at just the Joker and Batman, there's this like it's intimate. Like they know each other in a way. Like if you read the Scott Snyder Batman run from a few years ago, it's just a phenomenal run. But in one of the storylines, death of the family, he just kind of systematically just breaks down like every ally Batman has, and like introduces this like kind of doubt into all of them. And his whole point, and it's one of those things when they were hyping the story, it's like, okay, when they did death in the family, it was like the death of Robin, and is it going to be like a story full of like death and destruction? And was and it wasn't. It was like ended up being more like poking holes in all these relationships and making everyone question Bruce, because ultimately no one can love you the way that I love you, Batman. No one can know you the way that I know you, Batman, and you know it and I know it. And like something like creepy and wrong and gross about that, but also like so right at the same time, because yeah, like the Joker and him, I mean, he's so intertwined even in his origin and his creation, and like yeah, there's something about that like odd, almost symbiotic relationship that like I find like fascinating, and it's why like Joker's such a good villain and such a cool villain. Yeah, and I don't know, I just love the Joker too. He's such
I might even
he's
say
so
he's
cool.
he might even be the best villain that comics have ever created.
The Joker's cool because like they're about to do like the Three Jokers story, Jeff Johns is in the
Been
comics,
waiting.
and yeah, I'm really excited to see what that means, and if that's like, is that just three different Jokers from three different eras? Is it like, is the Joker such a large concept that it's bigger than more than one person can even like embody? Is it, I mean, DC has a multiverse. Is it just different alternate Earths? I mean, there's a few different ways that it could go, but like, I love that, you know, even like the concept of what the Joker is, you know, because even since we've been kids to now, like there's versions of the Joker that are like chaotic, just all over the place, and like they could like maybe walk an old lady across the street and then shoot the next person he sees. And then there's versions that are like very clearly cold and clinical and very calculated. And because that's always like the debate that like I see people have with the Joker is like, does he even know what he's doing? You know, and it's like, well, I guess that depends on the version of the Joker. You know what I mean? I feel like the Joker, as I see him in most things, knows exactly what the hell he's doing. Yeah. Like I think the Joker's in control at all times of what he's doing. Yeah. You know,
there's one theory. Oh, go ahead. There's one theory in the comics where I remember someone called him out, and they were like, "You're not even crazy." I think it might even been in the miniseries, the 9-issue series he had in the 70s. But
oh yeah,
there were parts in the comics where people would say that to him, and it would be part of the history of him. Interesting. But you know, over 81 years, there's so many different things and different paths that you just come across, and you get to where we are now, where now there's three Jokers. But I heard another aspect might just be three ideas of the Joker, like, hey, this is Barbara Gordon's idea of him, and you know, whatever, Batman's idea. But when it comes to comic books, you can't fucking, you don't know what these guys will do.
It's a beautiful concept too, because if you just boil it down to like just like the base concept, it's order and chaos, right? Mm-hmm. It's
black and white.
Crime, it's law and crime, you know. So like as like a writer, as just, you know, like a motif that you can kind of keep going to, there's so much that you can work with them being so diametrically opposed, you know. So yeah, I don't know. That's why I think they work so well, and I think it's such like a, you know, chocolate and peanut butter combination that like is just so good that just people will keep coming back to over and over again. Well, and
I think that's what I was going to mention about you working at the comic store earlier, was all these superheroes in the world, but sometimes you could just encapsulate the whole comic book universe by just showing Batman. Because he's almost, whether anyone knows it or not, you'll be influenced by him. He's pretty much, okay, Superman came first, but Batman was right behind him. And when you think about it, Batman is so rounded, and he's a human, that you're just gravitating more towards him, and brings you to the point of, like you said, it's the classic things, like it's good, it's evil. Like it's so black and white that you don't have to have a gray area there. It's just, it's the classic, most classic thing you could do.
Yeah, and that's, you know, and so I'm also a huge Superman fan, and the thing, I'm personally not a big fan of them like fighting each other and being opposed to each other. I'm more into them getting along most of the time, because ultimately they're both superheroes, and even if they do things differently,
they're best friends.
There's been eras where they were, in fact, definitely best friends and would hang out all the time, and I'm totally fine with that. I kind of view it as like, I'm the day squad and you're the night squad. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they ultimately they have the same goals. They're very different, and their motivations are different. The thing I love about Superman personally is, you know, you had this like, yeah, he came from an alien planet, ended up being like an orphan, raised in this idyllic, you know, middle of the country, like, you know, down home cooking environment. And he had like this ideal childhood, and because he had this ideal childhood, he had this like set of morals that came with it. So when he grew up, he's Superman, so that like everyone has the opportunity that he had to have that kind of life. That's what Superman does, and that's what Superman's motivation is. Batman has the exact inverse of that. Batman's, you know, Bruce's childhood was destroyed and taken from him, and you know, he was like a shell. He was nothing. He devoted his life to, you know, making sure that no one had the childhood that he has. And like either way, the end result's the same. I want to save people. I want to protect people. So that's why, like, yeah, I'm not interested in Batman versus Superman fights and in arguments and whatever. I love them both. I think they're both great. But like with Bruce, I love that, like, to me, one of his biggest weaknesses isn't that he's human as far as like his, you know, physical strength and all that stuff, because he's such a badass, he can just fight whatever. I love that he has to fight with his own like moral code. So like he's in love with Selena Kyle, Catwoman. Catwoman's more of an anti-hero. I don't really classify her as a villain, but she's definitely like a criminal. He has to like, you know, rationalize that in his mind, though, you know, like, I love this woman, and but also like, you know, like I'm conflicted there. So like that's what I love about Bruce, is like that conflict right there.
I think
that's what makes him interesting to me.
The greatest characters are always characters of tragedy.
Absolutely, and that's the tragedy. That's one of them right there for me. Is like, you know, greatest love of his life is like one of his biggest conflicts, and one of the things that makes him a hypocrite, frankly, because,
you know what,
you know, he has to let her slide in a way that he wouldn't for other people. And but I love that, and I, you know, like, I'm a huge Catwoman fan. I fucking love Catwoman.
Catwoman is like the first woman that I ever fell in love with, because Michelle Pfeiffer, and it just started. And then the Jim Ballant comic, remember that?
Oh yeah.
And it just started a lifelong fascination with Catwoman. And it's like, when I think of my favorite female comic character, I can't really get, I always have to say it's Catwoman, because it's like, I love so many others. Like, I love Mary Jane's, I love Jean Grey's, but Catwoman was like the very first, so it's like really a special thing, you know?
I actually have something directly related to that, and that's I got invited to do a Batman shoot about a year ago at the University of Washington. There's a really great local guy, a Batman in Seattle, that does like the 1989 Keaton Batman. And I hadn't met him at the time, but he reached out and asked me if I was interested in doing this thing. And then I found out my friend Mary, who's going to be in our movie, was going to be Catwoman in it. And I was like, oh, okay, that could be like really cool, because I'm also a huge Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman fan. And I remember like the night before the shoot, as I was getting all, you know, my gear ready, I was thinking like, man, because she had like the cowl and everything was like how it looked in the beginning of the movie, all clean and whatever. And I was like, that looks really good, but I love the fucked up look at the end where it's like the hair is splitting out and it's like the makeup's all smeared and like, and I was like, that's too bad we can't do that. And I guess what happened is like something got messed up with the cowl, and so she ended up. Yeah, but before the shoot, like it just something broke in it, and so she ended up doing like that actual look with like the hair.
Man,
so she,
but
I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting like earlier in the movie Catwoman, which would have been awesome, and I would have loved it. But so Mary walked up with like that exact look, and I was like, oh shit, like this is gonna be amazing. This is gonna be amazing, because like that's exactly like the best look in that film. It's just like super chaotic blonde hair.
I remember some of those pictures that you had, man, and like. You just don't see that.
They worked really well together. It's the same thing where like, you know, Mary has a very strong work ethic and just, you know, will keep jumping off of things and climbing on things and just for hours and just work.
That's what you need. You need people like that.
I feel bad sometimes, because since I'm the photographer most of the time, like, I mean, I move around a lot to get my shots and everything, but, you know, it's easy for me to say, hey, man, go climb up on that thing, because I'm not the one that has to do it, right? And so I sometimes, you know, forget how physically demanding a lot of that stuff is, but, you know, she just does it and just goes for it. And at the end of the day, you know, when I look back, it's like, damn, we got some really good stuff because we just made it happen. We just kept working, work.
Sometimes you got to suffer for the art.
Yeah, yeah.
Work with you, Eric.
What's up?
I've actually yet to work with you.
I know it's actually kind of ridiculous. Yeah, we've only done behind the scenes stuff on Chronicles. Yeah, well, we're gonna make it happen.
We'll unveil the bat suit when we get it.
Yeah.
We just ordered a UD Designs suit that's fully functional. That's another thing that the good thing about the replacement is, you know, the previous actor that we had in mind to play the role, I remember there'd be about 20 or 30 minutes before the suit was so heavy that it would become an issue and there would need to be a break. So with this functioning outfit, there won't need to be a break. Plus, Greg's been working on them guns over there. He don't need a break. This guy don't need a break. He can wear that.
Oh, that, and I'm used to being uncomfortable after wearing Captain America, so I'm set there.
Straight up.
But one thing that you had mentioned, Eric, about his Batman's morality and kind of justifying things, that's one of the things I really like. I think it was Under the Red Hood when he's talking to Red Hood about, you know, he's like talking about how it would be so easy to just go over that line, but then he would never come back. So it's like that is something that's in his mind, but he never crosses that line, and he always does the right thing, which is something like you were saying, Anthony, that you kind of hold on to as a fan, is like, okay, it'd be easier to do this messed up thing, probably get away with it, but the right thing would be to do this, and that's what Batman would do. And
because he still has to live with himself.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's what matters, and that's what makes Batman so great, is that he can't. It'd be so easy, but he won't, because he's Batman. And if there's a greater hero than Batman, then I don't know who he is.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely the thing that I really love about, you know, Jason Todd coming back as Red Hood and everything, is in Jason's mind, he is superior, you know, to Batman. You know, and it's like, no, because I will kill and I'll do what I need to do. And like, you know, there's a valid argument for that anytime Joker gets released and kills people that could theoretically be on Bruce's hands. But also, yeah, like he has that part of his code that won't waver and can't waver, you know, and he's always going to flash back to, you know, his parents, and it's like that was a promise made and promise that's going to be kept. And I definitely think that's like really cool and really fascinating that there's like, this is ironclad and will not change.
That's actually one of the things that, and I love the Nolan verse, absolutely. But I felt like after Rachel had died, that they should have written it where he just dove all the way into Batman. He was never even doing the Bruce Wayne stuff, just always Batman. That time period that passed between the two, the second and third one, they should have just had him just like balls to the wall, just being Batman all the time. And I get what they were trying to do, but I thought that would have been a better fit for what his whole overall moral, or not moral, but his promise to would have.
You know, one of the funny things about, I was watching a special about Graham Nolan in the Bruce Wayne scenes, and I think one of the things they're saying is he's Bruce Wayne in this scene, but he's not Bruce Wayne, he's Batman still. It's just daytime, so this is all he can do during the day.
Yeah,
because they say there's like one or two lines that are actually Bruce Wayne lines while he's Bruce Wayne, and the rest are like him doing Batman stuff, just not wearing the costume.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, we all know that's just a mess. That's just Alfred. It's more for Alfred's sake.
Yeah.
He wants him to still go out places and be a person.
Yeah.
Well, that's I think Alfred's like most important role he's like the lightning rod to Bruce's humanity, you know, because I think he really is a surrogate dad, and like Bruce left to his own devices would fall head first into the role. He would be a workaholic, and he would just do that, and he would never come out of the cave, and he would just work all the time. Alfred has to come in and like make fun of him and physically shake him out of it, and just, you know, you have to pretend sometimes, and you might even accidentally enjoy it sometimes, like, you know. And that's what I love about Alfred. And I feel like in all these different versions, like in the animated series, he was so snarky, and I loved it so much. But yeah, that's what I love about Alfred, is he has to remind him that, you know, you at least have to pretend. You at least have to pretend. And sometimes, yeah,
he's Batman's.
You'll actually have some fun.
Batman's strength to staying grounded to the world.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah,
I think there's a similar thing after, you know, after Jason's death. He definitely started down that road in the comics, and then they introduced Tim, and then Tim kind of had to present him with the concept of why you need a Robin, and it was a similar thing. It's like, you kind of need to be like a role model, and, you know, because you can't you can't tell me to like go to sleep and go to school and do all these things if you can't do it yourself, right? And so like, you have to take care of yourself. And again, going back to just the love aspect, that's like a thing that I really appreciate, is like, yeah, and that's the constant battle with him, is like, I just want to be Batman all the time, to protect everyone all the time, but then, you know, you have these people that like love you and care about you, and you have to like, you know, take care of yourself for them, and you have to take care of them as well. And yeah, there's something about that that's like really beautiful and really cool. And like, that's the human part that we can all relate to. I'm never gonna have billions of dollars like Bruce Wayne, but I know what it feels like to have people that like look up to me and like that I need to take care of, and whatever. That part I can relate to, and that's, you know, those kind of things are important, even in like fictional media, to have. You know, even if you're talking Star Wars or whatever, you need to have like aspects that you can relate to, and these interpersonal relationships are often the things that endear us to any of these characters.
That's it. It's all about becoming endeared.
Well, let's be honest too, man. If you leave a man to his own devices and he has nothing to ground him, that man is surely to go down a dark path. I mean, in the end, if you have nothing to, if Bruce Wayne had nothing to tie him to this world, he had no Alfred, he had no family, then honestly, he's no farther, or he's right next to Joker, about to snap and go crazy on people like everybody else. But it might be criminals he attacks, but it's going to be the brutality, and and obviously that's going to hurt it. It's going to go against his morals in the way that he really wants to be. So I kind of feel like without Alfred, there would be no softness to Batman.
It's the same thing as how he has the best rogues gallery. He's also got the best support, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like when people would come into the shop and they would want to know, like, where do I start with Batman? I'd start them with Hush. Is that story, not only does it introduce Hush as like a cool new villain, Hush is this big 12-part story, and it has a ton of the villains in it, and it has a ton of the heroes in it. So it's not just a Batman story. You get to see Huntress, and you get to see, like, is that Jason Todd? Maybe a little tease there, you know, but you get to see, you know, Tim Drake, dark. You get to see Nightwing, you get to see all these cool characters. And so, like, I would always start people with that story if they were new, and then it was like, okay, well, tell me the characters that you really liked in that one, and then I can branch you off to, like, well, there's a Clayface story over here that's more just about Clayface, and there's this story over here more about Jason Todd, and we can just go down that road. But like, this is almost like the Rosetta Stone, because there's so many aspects of it like crammed into this like just big 12-part graphic novel. But yeah, it just shows how people think of Batman as like being like the loner, but he's not really. I mean, you can do Batman stories where it's just Batman, you know, and they can be really cool and really, really interesting. But I liked it when it was like the era of like Oracle being like the eyes in the sky, and, you know, all that kind of stuff, and just showing like the network that he had, because Batman was like, it was like a Bat family, you know, and there's you know, more than just him.
Extends his reach. You know, you see how far his reach is, and how it affected the rest of the DC universe. Yeah,
absolutely.
You want to final thoughts on starting the movie? Should we go clockwise, Greg, or should we go counterclockwise? Give Greg a second. Seemed like it caught you by surprise there. Aaron, you want to start us off? Final thoughts going into the movie, first vlog?
Well, you know, I'm happy you guys all joined us. We've been trying to step out and do this for a while here. Me and Ann have been talking about it, or Anthony been talking about it for quite a while. man, being normal. So this is a new thing for us, but
integrating into society.
Into normal person society for sure.
I'm still shell shocked like Bruce.
On my first, I guess the only thing I would say is that we got a lot of things coming up. You know, we're gonna have everything's probably gonna be a little more definite about when everything's gonna start. What, probably about 2 weeks from now, we should have a really good idea of where we're going and a timeline, at least a basic timeline, because of course, you know, in production that always changes. It goes up and down, shifts, depending on people's schedules and weather and all the other good fun stuff. But yeah, I think that's it for me.
Eric,
am I going next? You know, I'm just honored to be a part of it. Just like with, you know, Chronicles, it, you know, just felt really good to get asked. And Lex is a character that, you know, I have a lot. I don't relate to Lex. I'm nothing like him as a person, but I think he's a really intriguing character. You know, again, being part of it's just being such a huge like Superman fan, and like Lex thinking that he's kind of like the everyman, but he's really not. He's so privileged, and like he just doesn't. He's not very self-aware in that way. You know, so like he thinks that like Superman's the villain just because he's this alien from out of town or whatever. And like if people would only just listen to me, and like, and of course he's just so clueless himself. But he's a fascinating character, and I don't really cosplay that much because I'm usually behind the camera, but you know, I've cosplayed Lex a couple times, and it's been really fun to like channel the character and just really get into it. And so yeah, it's, and you know, we've talked about doing a few other things with Lex as well. And I'll just keep that for now. But yeah, I'm just happy to be a part of it, honored to be a part of it, and you know, jumping in as a producer and everything as well. I'm just happy to help out. You know, I like working with hardworking people that have similar work ethics as myself, and you know, that I can vibe with. And yeah, so that's where I'm at currently.
We're excited to have you too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Greg, what do you think?
I'm excited to just jump headfirst in this whole thing and really make you guys all proud for because my idea of Batman isn't exactly everybody's idea of Batman. So I'm looking forward to bouncing all of these things off you guys and playing with the voice, playing with the way he delivers his lines, playing with how he interacts with other people or other characters. And I'm just really excited to just recreate a pre-existing character, because like with Sinister, that was something brand new, kind of from scratch. This is kind of like, here's the skeleton, not skeleton, here's the structure that you're working with, and kind of make it your own. So I'm just excited to get in and start working, man. That's what I'm excited for.
We're excited to have all you guys, and excited to have the cast that keeps growing. Everything just seems to be falling perfectly into place, and I think it's because of all of our positive energies and all of the passion that we have to create something great together, you know. And I think that by itself is a feat. It's coming together. And I feel like I have visions sometimes of what the movie will look like when it's done, and I just think this is probably going to be, it's going to blow us away that we made this thing.
Yeah.
I'm excited, man. I also want to say I appreciate the opportunity for Sinister initially, but I can't say enough how much appreciative I am of the support that you guys have shown towards my ability to take on Bane, and now instead of Bane, Batman. So I appreciate you guys, and I'm excited to go for you guys, man. So
it's what you had inside.
Yeah,
that was the final, helped to make the final decision, because we could see inside the light, you know, and the energy and the excitement, and why fight it? It feels so natural, you know, and it just seems right.
Yeah, I agree.
Glad to have everyone.
Thank you guys.
All right, make sure everyone's Aaron, right? Like, subscribe,
share, subscribe.
Tell your mom, tell the guy at the grocery store.
Make sure you comment too. Make sure you comment, and if you got any questions that you want to ask anybody on the cast, the crew, anything like that, anybody in particular on the cast and crew that you want to see on future vlogs, any subjects or themes, feel free to comment. We do read them, and we do.
We want to have everyone at least make one appearance.
Yeah.
Everyone
So if you search Dark Knight Triumphant on Instagram and Facebook, we've got pages up on both. You should be able to find us there. You can shoot us messages and everything. You'll start to see, casting announcements, teases as we get closer. You'll see like behind the scenes and things like that. So make sure to subscribe on both of those. For now, Iron Forge is already up on YouTube. So subscribe to Iron Forge on YouTube. Check out Wolverine Chronicles while you're at it. Give us some comments on that. And yeah, for now, that's where you can reach out to us. And yeah, we definitely love feedback and hearing from you guys. Absolutely.
I think that's a good place to end it. Hey, came out great. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
We want to have those certain staples that come every week.
Yeah.
Because we could always add more boxes. That's not a problem. 4 is like the minimal. Like we could add 6, 8, whatever it takes. But as far as producer standpoint, we always need some of our producers to be in the episodes just to kind of be the gel to kind of help keep everyone together,
Yeah. I'm happy to help however you need me.
Yeah, sounds great.
Sunday nights work for me once the kids are in bed,
I think next week, we got Bryn lined up.
Nice.
And we got Mary. I think she'll be able to clear that. And possibly Michael. But we'll see because he's got a 3 p.m. go to bed time. So.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. And you thought 7:30 was bad, huh? For your kids.
Yeah, right? That's intense.
All right. Well, what is it? Same bad time, same bad channel?
Sounds good. All right, well, keep me posted, guys.